Oh, it's official, Aimee. That's like the official start line.
Hey.
So if we're within the event
Got it.
page and you go live, that should show, yes?
Yeah, it should. All right, let's see. If not, this is going to be a huge.
You got it.
All right, I think we have it here. Aimee, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
great. I can hear you. And then we'll go live on Facebook. Let's find our event page. And great. Oh, it's good to see some people. So yeah, definitely share this on your page, and we will go live now on the event page. So give that just a second, and then I'll make my way back. Learning all sorts of new stuff, May.
I'm really proud of you, Jonathan, for stepping outside your comfort zone on the tech.
That was yeah, that was a challenge. All right. I think we're up. Susie, can you confirm? I think we're up. This is live. We're doing it.
Yes.
The power of 1 degree. All right. So thank you guys for joining us this morning. You may be wondering, what in the world is Rome's talking about? What is this power of 1 degree, and why do I keep seeing this on my feed? Let me tell you, I had a feeling that we were going to take advantage of this once in an every 28-year occurrence, which is the last time that we had 5 Thursdays in the month of February was 1996. So, hey, you got to live it up. You got to find a way to make it count. And we did that this year just by hosting this. It's called the Power of 1 Degree. And when I say we, I say our community of great loan officers here at Movement Bank. I'm going to share my screen with you guys and see if that will work. But where did it go? Here it is. So there it is. We've got all of our loan officers and our team here at Movement Bank. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. You were invited by one of us, and we're just honored that you'd spend a little bit of time with us this morning. We hope that it's going to be great. It's going to be valuable. If it was just me here, then it certainly wouldn't be as valuable as it would be otherwise. But today, I've got Aimee Dodson with me, and so I know that you're going to get a significant amount of value. It's going to be amazing. So, guys, I have Aimee Dodson with us here today. She's super, super famous in the world of movement and just in our community in general. And it's because she is so generous with her time. She's so generous with her gifts and talents. And I couldn't think of a better person to kick off our Power of 1 Degree shift than with Aimee, because she just embodies the culture of loving and valuing others so well. And, the power of 1 degree, by definition, you guys have seen a little bit about it. It's based on the principles of the Go Giver book, the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And what does that really mean? It means that where you're rooted from, kind of that where your belief system is rooted from, you're either going to be a go-getter or a go-giver. And from that 1 degree shift, over time, you're going to find yourself in very different places based on how you start your belief system right from the very beginning, right? And so I'm excited to hear Aimee's story and just have her share a little bit with us about how did you become so awesome? There's got to be so many great moments in your life and milestones that have kind of led to today. I'm sure it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns, but they all had an important piece of that story and just the way that you show love. So, guys, I'm excited. Aimee's always kind of led the torch in love as an example for me. And so somebody that I follow in that. And so, Aimee, welcome.
Thank you.
To the Power of 1 Degree.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm honored and a little humbled that I was asked to speak about this. And I don't know, who all's watching and if they even know who I am, or, I'm sort of just a regular gal, right? And living the life that I think I have intentionally architected, although
Mm.
there's been a lot of gifting and blessings that have fallen on my lap. And, I'm not so foolish as to believe that they were all coincidental. I think the 1% shift that you talk about is so important for being in the right place at the right time and being prepared to take advantage of opportunities when they fall in your lap. And when you called me about this, I've been thinking, and it's only been a handful of days really since we had this first conversation about what has led me to the place I am right now. And I had to go back to the really beginning. When I was a young girl, my parents divorced when I was really young. They were hippies. We had a kind of a nomadic early days that I don't really remember, if I'm being
Wait,
honest.
were you like on a like you weren't like on a compound, like
No,
total
no,
RV life or
not
what?
quite that. But
Okay.
my parents, my dad was like a ski patrol in Stratton, Vermont,
Oh,
and
fun.
I was born in a little town called Jamaica, Vermont. And my parents, well, I say nomadic because like they lived in Hyannisport for the summer before, and then they did the ski life, and then I was born, and then we moved out to Colorado again, living the ski life. And my parents split when I was really young. They were ill-fated together to begin with, both wonderful people, but not a good fit. And really quickly we moved back to their hometown, which was Pittsburgh, and my mom remarried. And my stepfather was a tyrannical, violent, misogynistic, racist.
Mm,
So that was not to make light of a really honest and raw negative situation.
sure.
That wasn't good. That wasn't good. But I remember, and it's taken some introspection to kind of get to this realization, we were also poor. So I was part of a Head Start program, which ironically is something that we now have at the movement schools, which is sort of like a
How cool.
federally funded free pre-K for people who are in a certain socioeconomic bubble. And as a result of being in Head Start, I was actually in preschool with a radically racially diverse group of kids in a
Mm,
community that was pretty white bread. And so I aligned myself with my friends in pre-K, right? Like they were my buddies, they were my friends. And I
yeah.
would come home and I would hear racist stuff that
Mm,
just didn't reconcile in my little 4 or 5-year-old brain, right? Like, no, they're not. This is my friend, you know.
yeah.
Mrs. Mildred isn't bad. And so I think from a very young age, I associated myself with the underdog,
Mm,
one. Um, and then, in early elementary school, I used reading as a form of escape from the environment I was in. I became a voracious reader at a very young age. And one thing I will tell you is that there are no good novels that don't contain a good story, right? Like
that's
novels
right.
novels are full of adventure and people who are different from you. And when you immerse yourself in a novel, you walk in the shoes of someone else. And I think that love of reading gave me two really fabulous character traits or desires, and one was empathy. It became my superpower. Really putting myself in the shoes of others in scenarios, and now played out as an adult and in the business environment, even in times of real conflict or dynamics that are complicated. I find myself really digging into that person in the dynamic that is not me, right? Like, where are they coming from? What's causing this? What's the backstory here? Because I think I'm wired to be empathetic eh, because of that. And so between the, violent upbringing and then the love of reading, empathy became a really powerful part of how I saw the world. And it was typically by looking at it in the shoes through the view of others. And then the second thing novels and voracious reading has a tendency to do is create a sense of adventure and a desire to have experiences. And
That's cool.
if you've known me for any length of time,
Yeah.
I'm always about the adventure.
So
Yeah.
real quick, I just one thing that you said is really striking to me because as you're sharing that, like I'm kind of thinking to myself, one of the things that that resonated with me about that just now was my own personal story. I emigrated here, right? Like I wasn't born in the US, but I came here at such an early age. And so, and you know, the language, I don't have an accent, that sort of thing. So it wasn't like I felt like an outsider, but I felt as one with the community of people that were kind of in the shadows, right? Just like that were immigrants as well, and that spoke a different language, that just this wasn't their homeland, so to speak. But at the same time, I was very so much, you know, integrated into the culture. But I get the underdog thing. I think that's such a big part of it because, you know, you can really see yourself in the other person, and it resonates with you to look out for the best interest of the underdog too, right? It's not like us and them, it's like we are one, right? And so yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that real quickly, but yeah, adventure is like your middle name. I feel like anyone who knows you and Trace and your girls, like you guys are all about adventure. And so reading of novel and getting into these stories, what it does, I think is and it always does it so beautifully, it transports us to a different place. You know, I think that's why we love it so much.
Right.
And so you were reading at a young age and got inspired to be adventurous.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, this is like after retrospection.
Yeah.
Certainly, I wasn't like an 11-year-old being like, I'm going to live a life of adventure. I
Yeah.
mean, I probably did think that, but you know, the life is full of practicalities too. You have to have a job, you have bills to pay. Like there's still the tension between I want to live a life of adventure and I also have to make sure that my family eats and that, you know, we have a roof over our head. So one thing that I have always tried to do was say yes wherever I could. It was one of our parenting mentalities when the kids were small. I never wanted to be the parent that always said no. Now, don't get me wrong. My girls will tell you, I'm not afraid to say no. You know, I have boundaries, but man, if it was within my power to say yes, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
And I know like the current, you know, I hear a lot of commentary about, you know, take time for yourself, and that's important. You don't have to say everything, say yes to everything. Don't overcommit yourself. Be judicious with your time. And I think that there are seasons of your life where that's really important. And I'm finding a little bit of that right now, if I'm being honest. But for most of my life, and I think probably for the rest of my life, I'm going to lean towards yes. Because guess what? I used to say when I was younger, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Now, I love a good nap. I'm not gonna lie, but no good story is told about a nap you had,
That's
right?
right.
I want to, at the end of my life, have just a litany of stories to tell, even if it's just retelling them to myself or refreshing my memory for them, because you know, there are so many opportunities for us to engage with a wider world when we say yes. Like you calling me last week and do this call. I say yes all the time. And as a result, I've had some really killer
Yeah.
adventures.
Tell us some of these stories about when you've said yes. What's a good example of this?
Okay, so here's a good example of this. My oldest daughter graduated high school in 2016. I think that's the right year. And, you know, early in the school year, she said, Mom, I want us to go on a trip together when I graduate high school. And, you know, we had always done trips with the kids. I started when they were 9. I would do a one-on-one trip with them. And, you know, it was somewhere domestic. Wherever I could get a cheap Priceline fare for a weekend, we would go and we would just explore, and just the two of us. So this daughter says, you know, I'm graduating this year. Let's take a trip. Let's take a trip. And life was busy. Things were rocking and rolling with movement. I was spread thin. Like the idea of committing to it, I was sort of like, yeah, let's do it. But as things were getting closer, I was not making it happen. And she came to me one day and she said, Mom, I found fares. This is how much they are. Let's just do it. And I said, okay. And I bought the ticket right then and there. And I didn't plan really. I was too busy leading up to the trip. But we went and we spent 18 days, just the two of us, camping through France and Italy and Switzerland.
Wow.
And I didn't have it all mapped out. I didn't have like I didn't have a big nest egg set aside. We were gonna have to be scrappy about it. And I'm going to tell you some of the very, very best memories of time spent with her were on that incredible adventure. And, you know, similarly, like I remember there was a day the girls were young and a coworker sent me a message and said, hey, listen, Miranda Lambert is playing in Greenville, South Carolina, and my girlfriend in Fayetteville, North Carolina has tickets she can't use. Do you want to use them? And I had a recruiting dinner that night, so I couldn't use them. I texted my husband and I was like, okay, here's a math problem for you. Tickets are in Fayetteville, concerts in Greenville. He's like, okay, if I drive 2 hours, I can get the tickets 2 hours back, scoop the girls 2 hours that way, we can make it. And they went and they were 4 feet away from Miranda Lambert for 3 hours,
Wow.
right?
How cool is
So,
that?
you know, there are times when you have to say no, but say yes. You know, when they say, hey, can we have our friends over? Yes.
Mm,
Yes, I'm going to be annoyed and have to hide in my room when all of the kids get really loud. But yes, you can have your friends over because I want to create a space where they all want to be. Because you know, as a parent, that's when you're going to be able to keep an eye on things and you get to know your kids' friends. But say yes when you can, and the details will sort themselves out.
yeah. That's good because, you know, saying yes is going to come with a lot of adventure. It's going to come with a lot of fun. But I like what you were um, sharing a little bit there about how you know, it's also coming through having the time management because you're also busy, right? So like the other part of that is you live a very busy lifestyle. You've got a great you guys are very adventurous personally, but then you're also very adventurous in your day job too, right? You're
Yep.
constantly traveling. It requires a lot of you and really your job as a national director of affiliate relationships is to build relationships and be present and you know and give a lot of yourself. So what does that look like when you have a family and you're a mother and wife and you've got this really busy job and you say yes to everything, but then you also have to work? Like,
Yeah.
how in the world do
Well,
you do it all?
that's a great question. I'm fortunate that you know, the work that I do is with a company that believes in the priority list of God, family, community, and then business. And obviously, none of it makes sense or is possible without profit. So business still has to be really important. But what I've always done is incorporated my family into my job where I can. Right. So hey, kids, I'm going to an event in Charleston. It's an oyster roast for our market. You guys want to take a road trip with me? Right. So from a very young age, I wove my children into and my husband into things, you know, hey, we're going to put on a family fun event and a kickball tournament. My husband's in charge of the barbecue. My kids are, you know, filling a cooler. And as a result of that, they have a sense of ownership over the job that I do. So they don't resent it quite as much, I think, if they would if they weren't engaged in it. And over time, the way that's worked out is my kids now have, and I say kids, they're young adults, they have incredible relationships with all of these people that I work with. And what I've uncovered now is like they have relationships with people I work with outside of me. Like they're
Right.
texting each other, or you know, a market leader and his wife and daughter came on a trip with us as a family to Spain. My daughters each, when they were in middle school, high school, separately went out and stayed with a market leader in Idaho for a couple weeks. So I've kind of worked to incorporate those two. If I keep them too separate, then resentment grows between them. So
That's good.
no,
Yeah.
that's not. I know that that's not always possible for all jobs. But if my commitment, which has always been to create an environment where we are loving and valuing people, then I can't possibly say only during these hours, right?
Right.
So my love for my movement community spills out into my personal hours. I mean, last Friday, no, not this past Friday, the Friday before, my husband and one of my daughters and I were at a concert in Charlotte, and we were leaving the concert and it was like 10:30, and I got a text message from an employee from Pennsylvania who got stranded at Charlotte Airport. And she said, "How far away are you from the airport?" I was like, "We're on our way." I told my husband, I said, "Go to the airport." And like we stopped,
Oh
we
my
picked
goodness.
her up, we brought her home. She stayed at our house. We had family breakfast. We sent her on her way the next day. And that's the kind of yes that happens in my life regularly. And now my friends have a relationship with this person they've never met before, and she feels a greater sense of connectivity to me. And boy, that actually spills over into success in the workplace, because our teammates at Movement, they feel like they know me, and they do. I mean, what you see is what you get. So, you know, the
Absolutely.
amount of engagement you have is you know, shows you that. I just thought of one other thing I wanted to tell you, Jonathan. You know, my example of saying yes with my daughter, it feels very entitled. Oh, we went to Europe. First of all, we went on the cheap, but I want to give you an
Sounds
example of
amazing.
I want to give you an example of saying yes in the small things. And I remember one day I had taken the girl, my husband was working, and I took the girls to dinner at a little local Chinese restaurant near our house. And at the checkout counter, they had one of those tall fish tanks, and there was this one lonely fish swimming around in the fish tank. And my youngest daughter was really concerned about that fish. All through dinner, she kept saying, "It's really sad. That fish is all by itself." And I was watching and seeing her empathy for a fish,
Mm.
right? And I wanted to honor that empathy. So after dinner, and we concocted the plan at dinner, the girls and I was like, the pet store closes at 9. If we wanted to, we could go to the pet store and get another fish and bring it back to the Chinese food store. And they were so excited. They were like,
Yeah.
apoplectic that that was gonna be what we were gonna do, you know? And we did. We finished dinner, we went to the pet store, she picked out a goldfish with big eyes and fancy fins, and we brought it back to the Chinese food restaurant, and the couple who owns the restaurant, who were super friendly, they were so tickled and thankful,
Oh, I
you know,
bet.
like, it was a sweet little thing. But my daughter, to see her emotional response to someone in need and have it
Right.
validated, those are the kind of yeses that have created a behavior pattern for my family around, you see something, you do something.
Yeah, that's so good, right? When you have the power, you have the solution within you, and it's a yes. And you know, in the grand scheme of things, I think for her it felt like a big yes. For you, it may, relatively speaking, didn't feel like that big of a yes. But it's what I see that you're you know, that you're sharing. It's that you're building a muscle in them, that those small yeses can turn into big yeses, and you've obviously, you know, you have that in your life. Actually, I just thought of this, and you know, you can share if you like, but I mean, there was a big bold yes. You actually brought in another family member into your family, right?
Yeah,
And that you don't do that unless you have a muscle already built for
that's right.
saying yes, and that's a big bold yes. So how did that impact you, or what was that like?
Well, you know, the goldfish is just one example over the years of countless times where we as a family who have stepped out in faith of, yes, we're gonna make ourselves a little uncomfortable so that we can serve someone else.
Mm.
And when my let's see, 2017 maybe, yeah, my or 18, my a girl who worked with me at Movement brought to us a situation of a child that she encountered through a counseling opportunity through a local church that she was mentoring. And we were able to get involved and ultimately got licensed to become foster parents specifically to provide a home for this young woman, this
Wow.
young girl. And
Yeah.
um, you know, she has now graduated college, and she is living in my dad's house next door in the upstairs, and we've continued our foster journey. It was that first yes that we needed to get over, and you know, we've had a number of young people live in our homes in addition to our kids since then. And I wish more people would say yes to the big things. And you're right, it's the muscle memory. Like, I don't think we could have gone from straight, not ever doing anything, to yes, let me take over parenting someone. Um, but the muscle memory of all of the little yeses made it that much easier to say the big yes. And man, it's incumbent on those of us who have good things going on in our lives to share that and bring those in who are needing it. You know, I saw a meme recently that was something like, you know, when you have a lot, don't build a bigger fence, build a bigger table or something like that.
Mm.
And, you know, that's definitely the mentality we've always had. We got plenty of seats at the table, and I want the world that I live in to be that way. I want to feel that way. Same, I've always been a collector of people. You know, I say you can collect people and you can collect experiences, and they are worth so much more than any stuff, right? You know,
Yeah.
we're such a consumeristic and commercialized and you know, into money as a community in general, and we have to fight against that in order for that not to become who we are. That's not who I want to be. You know, the people that I build relationships with, I tend to keep those relationships for the long haul. You know, the friends that I make that are from high school are still friends today. I've got friends on social media that I was friends with when I was in elementary school. And you know, it makes my life richer. It also it makes you more proximate to emotion, right?
Yeah.
The more people you know well, the more journeys you're going to walk with people who are hurting.
That's right.
You're also going to walk through more journeys of celebration because life is full of both that heartbreak and that celebration. And if you're along for the ride with the people you've built community with, you ride that roller coaster with them. And, you know, some would rather that not be the case. They would rather be insulated away from that emotional connection. And I'm not going to lie, there are some days when, because I'm sort of like the funnel at movement for a lot of people's hardship, you know, they come to me and I connect them with resources. So I find myself touching it, and that highly tuned empathy, it doesn't ignore what I see and what I'm seeing people I care about experience. But I think it also probably makes me better at finding ways to meet those needs because I'm genuinely connected to the emotional aspect of whatever it is that they're going through. And I feel like that's a richer way to live. I don't want to robot my way through this.
Yeah.
I want to experience it. I want to feel it. I want to touch it. I want to say yes. I want to love big. I want to have experiences. I want to have relationships. I want it all. And I don't want a yacht. I don't want, you know, like I don't have any expensive handbags or fancy shoes, you know. I probably should get a little bit better at that stuff, but I'm not. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, you know, you like you said, you're a collector of people and experiences, and the richness that you have. There's so much wealth in that, right? To your point, like that is true richness, and it's such a go-giver mindset, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's about really prioritizing the things that matter the most, and you know, relationships and connections, and being a giver, and you know, everything you're describing just, you know, embodies that so well. You open your house, you do have the bigger table. Your table's always open. For those of you who know Aimee well, look, I mean, for our Mexico trips, there's an entire suitcase, right? An entire suitcase dedicated to airplane fire. Yeah, am I saying it
Fireball
right?
minis.
Fireball minis coming at you. And so you invest so much into people. It's just, it just flows out of you. And so, you know, it's interesting you say that, you know, I don't need all of the things, but there's so much investment that you give, not just of your time and of your gifts and your talents, but you're pouring into people financially. And it's so encouraging to see, for those that know you, that when you're investing so much into other people, there is just natural dance that always brings great gifting and blessing back to you as a result. And you know, it's just a great example of that, right? It's like it's just a giver's game,
Yeah.
right? So
You know, Jonathan, my husband and I, we coined a phrase a million years ago at our house called the penny principle. I'm going to write a book someday. I'm sure of it about this.
love it. I would love it.
It's this notion that, you know, the analogy is at any given day, if you walk around the world and you pay attention, chances are you would be able to pick a penny up off the ground. I don't know if it's just me, but like probably more days a week than not, I pick a coin up off the ground. Now, maybe that means I got my eyes focused down to the ground too terribly much, but it's an analogy for our kids around the idea that there are opportunities, there are people of value, there are experiences of excitement literally all around you. You just have to have your eyes open and be willing to say yes, or be willing to take the next step or initiate the conversation. And every time in our parenting journey where that has come to fruition in the debrief, we're like, now you realize that only happened because you picked up the phone and made that phone call.
Right.
You realize that only happened because you had that relationship with so-and-so, that you were kind and thoughtful over the years, and they thought of you when they had this opportunity. And so creating an awareness, not just as a parent for your kids, but for yourself around the notion that there is opportunity and it's abundant. And you know people, Jonathan, you interact with people. There are some people whose mindset is always, when is the other shoe going to drop? Woe is
Yeah.
me. This is a catastrophe. Life is so hard. Like all of the negative Nellies of the world. Gosh, they're missing out on so much incredible stuff. Because even in the really hard times, because there's still really hard times in my life,
Sure.
I don't have like a free pass on that. Even in those hard times, if you look for it and if you're open to it, there are these incredible opportunities to experience the beauty of our lives. You have to find joy in the small stuff. You have to find joy in getting a goldfish a friend. And when you do find those moments of joy and you are grateful for them, it kind of tips the scales massively in your
Yeah.
favor. It creates an insulation for navigating the really hard pieces. Because you know what? I was an abused little kid, and my
Mm,
life is amazing.
mm.
And
So
and
good.
and everyone we interact with has had their own trial. They're either in the middle of it or they've already had it, or it's coming. And so that combined empathy with a a passion for living big and saying yes has has been a great recipe for me. And I hope it's going to be a good recipe for my kids too. They didn't have the hardship that I had. And every generation's dynamic is different, right? Like
Right.
they're going to go through challenges. They're going to. As a parent, as much as I'd love to prevent that from happening, it's a reality. And my hope is that I've just empowered them with an outlook and a connection to people, and frankly, a connection to a higher power
Mhm.
that roots them in a place that allows them to operate in a positive mindset, even in the challenge.
Oh, it's so good. So good. And what I love about that, it really aligns with what we wanted to highlight today, which is the law of value. The Go Giver series has these 5 laws of stratospheric success, and today's highlight is the law of value that simply says that your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you were to receive back or ask for in return. And you're so right. I mean, you can just pour out, pour out, pour out, pour out, and you could do it not from a not from a mindset of the glass is half empty, but knowing that the glass is half full and I can pour all of myself back out. My glass is still going to be half full. And in fact, the more it's half full, the more it's overflowing. Right.
That's
And
right.
so, yeah, what an encouragement. Thank you, Aimee, for that. Susie, I'm going to check in with you in just a minute to see if we've got any questions. But now we've got Super Bowl weekend coming up, and I want one last story. I want to hear about how you made it to the Super Bowl. And in the meantime, if you guys have any questions for Aimee, this is a great time to do it. Throw it in the chat, or just give us a quick shout out. Let us know where you're seeing us from and hanging out from. And we're about to celebrate Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I
That's
can't
right.
believe you've been to the Super Bowl.
I have. And it's funny because we jokingly at my house I call it sports ball to annoy my husband because I'm
That sounds very
overall
much like Carla, my wife. She's like, how many baskets did they,
throw. Yeah.
throw? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I mean, I in younger phases of my life, I was really into sports ball, but at this season of my life, I just don't have a lot of bandwidth for it. It's on the shelf. And my
yeah.
husband, bless his heart, he loves every version of sports ball that is, and he has multiple, particularly non-sporty daughters. So I'm sure that's been a huge disappointment in his life. But one year we actually bought season tickets to the Panthers, and it was the one year that they went to the Super Bowl in the last 20 years, right?
Wow.
So, and ironically, this is kind of goes back to the whole collecting of people. There was someone that I had met in my role at Movement that was in the insurance world, and we just stayed in touch and we hit it off. And, he would come to town and we weren't even doing business together, but my husband and I would have dinner with him because we had a, friendly relationship and I collect people. And so when that season was going really well, he reached out to me and he said, "Hey, Aimee, I don't even remember the specific dynamic. My BFF is part owner or is affiliated with this particular team, and he gets tickets to the Super Bowl every year, and I go and I buy them. I get them allocated to me, but I'm not going to be able to go this year. If your Panthers go, would you like to buy the tickets?" And I'm thinking to myself, well, how expensive are they? And they weren't cheap, but they were face value. My husband was like, we're at dinner. He's like, say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes. So we said yes. But of course I'm like, I'm not going to spend, I think they were like $800 a ticket, which I saw something recently about the game this week and it's like $12,000 a ticket, but the face value was like $800
Wow.
a ticket. And I'm thinking to myself, that's too much money. And my husband is like, "Ugh." And so we bought the tickets. And of course we sold the other two, for not even like staggering amount of money, but enough money to pay for our two and our airfare. And
Wow.
we stayed with a friend out there and we had a grand old time, and I was a big sports ball fan that year. and, Panthers didn't win, but it was a blast. And for my husband, that's a bucket list to go to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
And, similarly, we got to go to the Kentucky Derby a few years earlier. Again, a friend said, "Hey, I have these tickets and we've got a conflict. Any chance you guys want to go?" And I guess maybe the reputation of being someone who says yes also opens a lot of doors because all of my friends far and wide know that when they've got a last minute opportunity that I'm a decent bet to say yes. And as a result, I've seen all kinds of like great shows and gone on fun adventures and, yeah. So Super Bowl,
I
Super
love it.
Bowl last.
Well, you got to be, you touch on something that we're going to touch in the 5th week of our series, which is the law of receptivity. You got to stay, you stay open to saying yes when that giving comes back to you because you're such a giver. You throw the city's best Halloween party. You bring a suitcase full of Fireball minis. Open your doors and the table for both friends and then family and extended family and by that I mean just adding family to the family.
Yeah.
There's just so much about you, Aimee, that embodies this go-giver mindset. So grateful. Susie, do we have any questions? Cool. All right. Well, guys, if you do have any questions, throw them in the chat. We'll get back to Aimee with those. And Aimee, thank you so much. Thanks for carving out a few minutes of your day today to just chat with us and sharing a little bit about your story and your journey. I'm positive that this is going to be very, very not just impactful, but encouraging and almost setting the bar for people to be like, oh, we're gonna pick up some of these principles and apply them ourselves, which is the goal. So thank you again.
Jonathan. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Aimee. All right. Talk to you soon.